Cool.fm is the perfect station for music lovers who enjoy a mix of adult pop, modern country, and classic hits. Our unique blend of different genres creates an awesome listening experience that you won't find anywhere else. With Cool.fm, you don't have to constantly change stations to hear the music you love. Just download the Live 365 app and start listening to our curated selection of modern adult and country hits, as well as the classics you know and love. So tune in to Cool.fm and start enjoying the best of all your favorite music in one place.
Hi, I'm Wells Thompson, co-creator of Depths, now available on Kickstarter. You're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by one of two halves of an amazing team. Yeah, math is not my strong suit. They were on the show in the past before, but we are joined by the first half of the two. Wells Thompson, of course, the creator of Mechaton, Frankenstein the Unconquered, which we had on last time, and now a brand new comic called Depths. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, enjoying myself.
For those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking.
Absolutely. My name is Wells Thompson. I'm a comic writer based out of Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, I write a whole host of things. Mechaton, Frankenstein the Unconquered, most recently Depths. There's no real genre centered to all of them, just fun character-focused stories that usually deal with tentacles of some variety.
So not the tentacles that are from the Far East. It's just, in this case, it's the depths of the sea.
Yeah. They, sometimes it's kaiju, sometimes it's cosmic aliens, sometimes it's giant squid, but there's always tentacles.
That sounds like it should be a restaurant. There's always tentacles. Just, that would be the perfect name for it. Depths is of course, your brand new campaign here. It's an amazing trailer. You have beautiful artwork there as well, too. You're just one part of an amazing team here, who is, of course, the team that works with you on this particular comic series.
Absolutely. So we have Dalton Shannon, my co-writer and editor and very best friend. We've been working together for a long time. He co-writes almost everything with me. There's some stuff that we're doing individually now, but it's mostly the team. There is Jeremiah Sheik. He is the line artist on this book, best known now for Hush Ronin, a series from Band of Bards that looks spectacular. It's in previews right now. Rajesh Kumar is on colors. He's a fantastic colorist out of India, really solid guy, and he's worked with Jeremiah before. They have a great creative chemistry together. And then our letterer is Nathan Kempf, who works on Mechaton and Frankenstein with us. Not that you would realize it. He's such a chameleon. Like he's very good at just going in and fitting whatever style the book needs. You can't really tell that it's him doing it. He just does such a good job matching the tone. And then big shout out to Brenda Snelby, who designed the logo and Kickstarter page. So when you scroll and you think to yourself, oh, this looks really beautiful, this is really well laid out, that's all Brenda.
And it is very beautiful and very well laid out, and it provided all the information very succinctly there. So yeah. I loved it. It's just amazing. Like the pops of the colors, not only on the campaign itself, but in the artwork. We had Jay Sheck on last year as well too. Just talked about Hush Run and that journey. That was an incredible story in itself. You pull together such great people here. What is the joy of working with these individual people to put together a comic like that?
Oh, it's the joy of putting together a super team. Watching the story evolve at every juncture. It's a very personal story to me and Dalton. It kind of came out of us at some of our lowest moments. This idea of a guy stuck at the bottom of the ocean, unable to really find his way out. So to share that with someone and for them to see like our vision for it and why it was special, that was already a really fulfilling moment. But then for Jay to come in and really realize the characters, already he's adding, so much more personality than we put into it just through his character acting and through the way he draws them. And then seeing Rajesh come in and turn what was a beautiful drawing that Jay made of the ocean into this claustrophobic and like palatable, like it's, if you have thalassophobia, like maybe don't read this book. It's very, it takes place mostly underwater, and it is really intensely like well colored for that. It feels like you're in the murky depths. Nathan always finds a really unique voice and a way of making the lettering stand out. So I'm always thrilled to be working with him.
So let's talk about the story itself here. Obviously,
Sure.
you know, you said this was a personal story for both of you and we'll talk about the themes obviously with this here. You know, talk about the actual comic itself here. How did this come about, and what is some of the main characters that we should be focused in on for this series?
Sure. So the initial idea was Dalton had. After college, we were both kind of lost, which many people are. We didn't really have much direction, and Dalton was out on his own, away from his parents for the first time, away from his girlfriend, who is now his wife, living on his own. It crushed him. He didn't have an outlet, and after about a month, he packed it in and moved back home, and in just kind of a haze wrote the first draft of the first issue of Depths, which that first issue has stayed very consistent throughout the many drafts of this story that we've done. He wasn't able to really form it into anything that he was satisfied with. So when we started working together, that was our first project that we tackled was this idea in the script. He told me about it, and immediately I was like, yeah, I see it. A guy stuck at the bottom of the ocean for 3 years. I've been that person. So I knew right away that like I could do something cool with it. And yeah, we worked on it together. We did about 4 drafts of it and formed it into something that we could both really be proud of. Yeah, the story itself, a scientist, Emil Parker, I don't know why I forgot that name. Emil Parker builds this underwater diving suit, perpetual diving suit. So he never theoretically has to come back up. It will sustain him, you know, while he's down there. And then an accident occurs and he gets stuck down there. He built it with his best friend, James Harrigan, who is also an engineer, much more of a bright personality, much more of a socialite, very different personality, but they're bonded, they're brothers. So while Emil is looking for a way out and trying to survive underwater, James is on the surface looking for him, trying to figure out, you know, where he is. He has full faith that he's still down there, but he's also got to continue to live his life and pay bills and whatnot, while also knowing that your friend is stuck like that. And then there's my two favorite secondary characters, Grace Martin, who is a reporter that plays a hand in the accidents that causes Emil to get lost, and also plays a really important role in the search operation for him. And Douglas, who is an octopus that Emil finds underwater and sort of befriends as the only thing that he can talk to and really confide in. Yeah, it's a story about dealing with grief and loss and struggling and trying to survive in the most inhospitable of places.
It's an amazing story. I mean, I definitely want to pick up a digital copy of it as well too, for sure, because I want to be able to just see more than what the campaign shows.
Right.
Like this is definitely something that will need my full undivided attention, you know, for at least a couple of hours for sure to really dive into it. No pun intended. But
it's been a gift for podcasters. Every time we come on, there's a new Depths pun that comes out.
And that just came off the top of my head. I mean, that was just like, give me some time. I'm sure I could do a full podcast just on depth type humor. And
it writes itself. It absolutely writes itself.
Is there going to be a issue 1.5 where it's just all puns? The entire series is just depth puns.
Oh, what a different book that would be. No, there is going to be a book 2. So this is book 1, 112 pages. Book 2 will be 112 pages, and that will be the full story of Depths, just those 2 books. But yeah, no, we're not planning on making you know what? If you guys support it enough, I will make that a stretch goal. We'll make a Depths pun book.
Dad jokes in the depths of hell. I mean, this journey itself, you know, you both have worked well together on Rakatan and Frankenstein the Unconquered here, but going to this side of things, and I almost wish we could have had Dalton on the show. Actually, that would have been a great way to kind of dig into his mind, because while you both work well together.
It started out his story, but at this point, and he would agree with this, it has definitely become our story. Okay. Like, there are definitely parts where we can pick out, yeah, I wrote this, or yeah, I you came up with this idea and I wrote this character. But at this point, it's been passed back and forth so many times you know it's no longer really like either of yours individually when you know give it back to someone and say, hey, this was a really good line, good job, and they're like, I think you wrote that but I can't remember. And there's just as much of me in this book as there is Dalton. It did start as his idea, and I do give him full credit for that. But yeah, it's ours that we shaped together, and it will undoubtedly become, you know, Jay's and Rajesh's and Nathan's as well, because they all add something to the mixes as well. It's just the nature of collaboration. But
your campaign is currently ongoing here, which
yes.
is wonderful to see. I believe it's a month-long campaign. Is that right?
Yes. So it started on the 1st. It will end on the 31st of May, which is the month that we're currently living in, but might not be the month that a future listener might. So yes, it's running for the entire month of May. To my knowledge, we're approaching 40% funding. Yeah, with I think 21 days left, somewhere around there, or 20 days left. Certainly doable. Going to be very hard, but we're going to keep pushing for it. $20,000 is a large goal. It's nothing to sneeze at. We figured this was the best time to sort of debut it. It's something that's been, you know, eating at us for years now. We don't want to keep it in the drawer anymore. We don't want to keep it filed away.
Looking at the tiers, though, that you have here, what are some of the tiers, since you've obviously run campaigns, you all run campaigns in the past as well, too, and you know the depths of what you need to do. That was not a joke, man. I did not mean that for a joke. You know what you're getting into with these types of campaigns.
Sure.
What is something new on this particular campaign that maybe you haven't released in past campaigns?
Oh, well, there's two big ones. The hardcover, which we've never done a hardcover book before, because up to this point, we've only done single issues. So this is a much bigger book, and we're sort of preparing for the ramifications of that, of shipping a bigger book, printing a bigger book, learning how to do things like design the spine and just the little things that no one thinks about. And that's been a really exciting thing that we've been able to offer, because a lot of people really love, you know, big hardcover books and love more or less complete stories, that people will be drawn to this that aren't drawn to the single issues just because there's more story there. That said, the most exciting thing that we're doing that's brand new that we've never done before is a Draw Me In tier to incentivize people, you know, spending a little bit more, getting us where we need to be. We have tiers for you to draw yourself into the book, get drawn into the book. Jeremiah will draw you as either a background character, extra with a line, as we call it. So you'll have a line of dialogue somewhere in the book. We have a couple of slots for minor characters. So characters that actually have like a full scene that affect the story that we can draw you into. So you can be a part of a book, both metaphorically by funding it and also literally by having your face drawn in there. So every physical copy comes with digital. Okay. I say so you get both. You have the ability to rely on one, store it just in case. You know, there's a little bit of a delay probably between the digital coming out and the physical going out, printing and whatnot. So that's a benefit we give to everybody. Everyone's name goes in the book as a thank you page. That's something we often can't do with single issues because there's not enough space, but there's a lot more room in this book. It's a lot more pages. So we have more, you know, if we have to do 3 pages of a thank you page, great, let's do it. We've got 3 different covers. We've got an enamel pin. This is the first time we've ever done an enamel pin. It is distinctly not in the style of the book because it's done by Fernando Pinto, who draws Mechaton, our other series. It's very cartoonish. It's a little octopus it's a depiction of Douglas, the octopus, because this book tends to be a little bit heavier, deals with some, I was going to say the depths of the human soul or whatever. So yeah, puns galore. Yeah. But yeah, it kind of dregs up those emotions. It can be a little bit bleak at times. And there's a lot to the book. It's not just that. There are jokes, there are action sequences, but it deals with that a lot. So we wanted to create something that was a little bit more positive and reflected sort of the positive message that we think lies at the heart of the book. So we made a sticker and an enamel pin of this little cartoon octopus that says Douglas believes in you, because he does. And if he believes in you, you can too. That we had made extra for the book. And we made this beautiful poster by Tina Isola, who is a friend of mine from Nashville. She created this really gorgeous, it almost looks like a blacklight poster or underwater landscape a very small Emil and Douglas in the center of the thing, looking out into a vast, bright ocean. Because of the many things that this book is about, sort of that we loved exploring with it, the natural beauty of the ocean and our world, and things that we never get to see, was very much a driver for it. One of the great things about being able to make this book was doing all this research into what it would be like to be underwater, what the ocean looks like, what kind of creatures live down there, the challenges about living down there, and exploring that space in a way that a lot of stories don't get to.
Immediately, I was kind of drawn to like a BioShock, or I was drawn to National Geographic, and then, things that we grew up on, or things that are not always widely referenced these days since we have the internet. You look at Jacques Cousteau, or you look at, everything that drove our imagination. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, like
absolutely,
the campaign is a huge influence. You could easily see it. It was just, there's so much media content out there that I'm sure you got overloaded with probably some of the stuff.
For sure.
To include and couldn't.
There was so much stuff that we left on the cutting room floor, and to the point I got so into researching like ship design and what kinds of ships were made when and for what purpose and what they looked like and stuff. I wound up just turning that into its own series. So I have a 5-issue mini-series that is about sailors and is sort of supernatural and takes place on a trade merchant ship, as well as an 8-page short in the Band of Bards anthology From the Static. Oh, the opener is called The Infant, and it was sort of also born out of this research of it's about a whaling vessel, and some horrific scenario happens there. There are stories where you have to do a lot of creating and a lot of inventing, and then there are stories where just kind of the world takes care of itself. The research sort of guides you, and everything you read about is just like, oh, that's really cool. Let's put that in. Let's find a way to put that in there. And as you said, I grew up, the very first thing I ever wanted to do when I was a kid was be a marine biologist, because I wanted to study sharks. That's what I liked. That's what I wanted to do. And to this day, I know an unhealthy amount about shark anatomy and behavioral patterns and species and et cetera, et cetera. So yes, I got very specific in the book when it came to the animals that we used and like the kinds of species and where they live and how that, like, everything works that way.
Favorite shark that isn't the great white?
Favorite. So whale shark is my favorite. Spiritually, I identify it because it's more, plankton aren't really plants, but it's kind of like a vegetarian, and I'm a vegetarian. It's also giant and beautiful, and there's nothing I want more than to swim with a whale shark. I love wobbegong sharks for how weird they are. Reef sharks, but they're made to like blend in, so they've got this weird face that kind of like stretches out, and they're sort of flat, and they're ambush predators. As far as like being a good shark, hammerhead is my favorite. It is the ultimate it's the ultimate argument for evolution does what's efficient, not what's aesthetic, because it looks like an idiot, but it is so much better at being a shark than most other ones. And then cookie cutters are probably the weirdest little guys. Hold a special place in my heart for that. Cookie cutters are about that long. They have a bioluminescent strip on their neck. And the point of that is they live at such depths that there's very little sunlight, but there is enough. And so if you look up at them, like as a fish, it looks like they're a much smaller fish than they are. And so things will go and try to eat it. They will attach to the thing and like create this little ice cream scoop of meat just out of them. That's why they're called cookie cutter sharks, because it looks like they just have ball out this little scoop of them. We didn't know that they existed until the Cold War, when we had submarines that we thought that their sonar kept going wrong, and we thought the Russians were messing with them. Like, we almost got fully into World War III, and then a submarine surfaced and one was still attached to the rubber. And that's how we discovered that the shark is even real.
Okay, then which one would you get a tattoo of?
Which one would I get a tattoo of? Ooh, this is legitimately a hard choice. I don't have that many tattoos. I've got this one, this guy, which is for a friend, and I've got this guy, which is for a very beloved pet. I'd probably go for a wobbegong, just because they have a unique shape of it. Either that or a hammerhead.
So you could have done the cookie cutter and then got bioluminescent ink or something like that, UV ink or something, and then
I don't know if they make that. That's interesting. But yeah, it would be one with, it would either be like a great white where it's very like everyone knows what it is, or be one with a distinct, shape. Another one that comes to mind, sorry, I'm not going to keep just talking about sharks the whole time, I promise, but another one that comes to mind is the thresher shark has this like beautiful long tail that's the entire like length of the rest of its body, and it uses it like a whip to stun fish. They generally travel in, these tight little clusters, and it's hard to get one individually, but you just shock them in the water so that they stop moving for a second, and then you eat them. It's a really cool hunting technique. Like,
well, now I have enough content to have favorite sharks of Wells and on YouTube. So there you go. That's.
Someone is asking the hard. I've never gone into a deep shark monologue on a podcast before, so I know you're asking the right questions.
Look, if I can't go introspective, I'm going to dive into what you like to do. So, geez. And there's another pun. You talked about some of the themes here as well, too, briefly during our conversation. And what was something that you learned when talking with Dalton and working out this story that maybe you didn't know about him or about this creative process between the two of you?
I mean, really everything. This is our first collaborative process together, so it was very much us learning to write together. This is how I learned how to write comic scripts. I originally wrote it as a film script because that's what I was used to writing at the time, was a lot of screenplays. And he was the one who kind of broke down like, no, you have to take it page by page and panel by panel. You can't just like imply motion, because that's not a thing that that comics can do. So there was that. There was also just like, it was cathartic in a way, because as I mentioned, like it's a very personal story. It's about grief. It's about loss. It's about learning who your father is. Like there's all these like kind of layers to it. It was very cathartic because it was like, these were things that Dalton had either brought to me or kind of buried in the text without realizing it. And so it was nice to be like, oh, this isn't just me going through this. This is if not a universal experience, at least one where people generally will find themselves at some point in their lives feeling this way. I feel like of all the stories that we've been able to tell, this one is the most in my wheelhouse personally, and the most outside of Dalton's normal field of expertise. He's normally very like action and all ages and adventure focused. Whereas I tend to be more magical realism and character studies and the big, heavy thematic stuff. It was really nice to be able to work on this book for that reason, because it's what I love to do. What I learned was mostly just form, was mostly just like how to write comics, how to bring people together.
Hey, if you can learn something from anything, you've moved forward in life. That's
absolutely.
So, more power to you. And this is going to set you up for maybe a story day in the future.
in more ways than one. What's funny about comics as a form, at least at my level where I'm not, able to put out an issue a month, as frequently as I would like, what you're seeing is often what I was writing 2-3 years ago, or in this case, 5 or 6 years ago. Yes, I love that we're getting to put this out. But when people are like, what are you going to do next? I'm like, you mean, what have I already done? I've got a whole graphic novel after this one that I want to write. Like, there's definitely more in the barrel that Depths came from. And I'm really excited to be able to start exploring that, but also excited to continue working on new stuff. It is sometimes frustrating not being able to just come out and do the thing that I'm currently talking about and interested in. And you always sort of worry that the moment of relevance has already kind of passed you by. But I find the more I do this, the more, if we're ever at a point where it's like, this story is no longer relevant, well, was it really worth telling in the first place? Yeah. Usually they last, and that's we go back and read it and we go, oh wow, this is still really good. And that's a really good indicator that, yeah, this is what we need to be working on right now. So it's both a curse and a benefit.
We can only do so much with our time in our life. And the fact that you're putting content out there and putting stuff out there with an amazing team, like with Dalton and everyone else, more power to you. I think that you're bringing joy to the world in some way, shape, or form, and I'm glad you're doing it, at least with this story and whatever we talk about next time. Yeah,
for sure. No, this is definitely one of two stories that I would say like I kind of have to tell. But I got to get this one out. I got to get the next one out, 2 full graphic novels, and if I can't make comics after that, it'll suck. It's not gonna be my favorite. But at least I'll have done that much. At least I've gotten those 2 big stories out of the way.
What's the other story?
The other story is called Dust. It's a spiritual sequel to Depths. It's not a literal sequel to Depths, but they sort of handle some of the same concepts and themes. But it's about a brother and sister in the 80s that take a car trip across the United States to scatter their parents' ashes. And it was so much fun to write personally, but also like still gets me deeply emotional. One of those things that like, even as I was writing it, I was like, oh, I am not keeping it together right now. So that one, I feel like I've always sort of half joked that like Depths is gonna, get us nominated for something, and then Dust is gonna win it. I feel very strongly about these stories. I think that they're quite good, and I don't like to, put myself in a position where I feel like I'm being egotistical. But I really believe that this is the kind of story that people are going to read and connect with, and it's going to matter in a sort of grander sense than just a comic that'll entertain people for a little while.
Well, when you're at the Eisners or the Rangos or whichever ones, happen to nominate you and you win an award, I'll be clapping on the internet for you guys. So there you go.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's not ego. If you feel strongly enough about a story and you push it enough and you put the effort that you have done, like what you've created, you'll get your story out there. It'll touch someone's life, and that's all you really need to do. Awards are just, happenstance.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I'm not hung up on awards by any means. It's just that's sort of how I feel about the books. And yeah, getting it out there and touching someone's life, that is the ultimate goal. Being able to feed myself would also be nice. I'm going to throw that out there, but given that is the less realistic of the two somehow.
I'm glad I touched your lives, but I still need money to eat.
Yeah.
Well, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Before I let you go, diving into your social media here, tell us where we can find you and how we can support you, of course, where the Kickstarter campaign is, and anything else you'd like to promote.
Yes, absolutely. So you'll find me most frequently on Twitter at Wells Thomp. It's just my name minus the last three letters. I have a newsletter called Comics, Cats, and Cocktails, which you can find on Twitter or on my website, wellsthompson.com. I also have a Ko-Fi. If you want to pick up any of my comics outside of the context of a Kickstarter, that is the only other place to do it. Ko-Fi.com/WellsThompson. That will take you to me. You can buy a book or just buy me a coffee. That would be nice too. I recently did the foolhardy task of starting a TikTok. So if you would like to follow me there, it's just my name, Wells Thompson. Please support the book. It is on Kickstarter. It is a project we love. It will not be hard to find. It's called Depths. We've been talking about it I hope you know what it is at this point. We've been talking about it for a while, so.
Like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You can, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our website, tgtmedia.com or twogeekstalking.com, but the website is going through a revamp, so come to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/TGT The podcast is back after 12 years, where you can find this interview and a ton more from past years on twogeekstalking.podbean.com, or just search for Two Geeks Talking, the word two, not the number two, on any of your favorite podcast streaming services like iTunes, Spotify, and a bunch of others. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.